The blue waters of Zephyria turned dark with fear as massive metal ships blocked out their 3 suns. Admiral Kalara pressed her webbed hands against the command center's crystal walls, watching her people's greatest cities crumble under enemy fire. The Korthak machines had been attacking for 6 long months, and now their final defenses were breaking apart like glass. "We have no choice left," Kalara whispered to her officers, her gills fluttering with exhaustion. "Send out the emergency signal to every corner of the galaxy. Tell them we need help, or our entire race will be extinct by morning." The distress beacon shot out into space, carrying the desperate cries of a dying civilization. It traveled through wormholes and across star systems, reaching dozens of advanced alien races. The Altarians received it, but quickly deleted the message, saying the Zephyrians were already doomed. The Centaurian Empire got the signal too, but their leaders just shook their heads and went back to their afternoon tea. Even the mighty Vegan Alliance, with their massive war fleets, decided it was too risky to get involved. The message seemed destined to go unanswered until it reached a small human outpost on the very edge of known space. Captain Jake Morrison was sitting in his cramped office, going through boring mining reports and wondering if he'd ever see real action again. His ship, the Defiant, was filled with the toughest humans he'd ever met. There was Lieutenant Amy Parker, who could crack any alien code in minutes. Sergeant Tom Wilson led a squad of Marines who had fought in 3 different wars. Chief Mike Davis could fix anything with spare parts and determination. Dr. Lisa Chen knew more about alien biology than most aliens knew about themselves. These weren't your typical space explorers. They were former soldiers, miners from dangerous asteroids, and colonists who had survived on worlds that would kill most people in hours. They had volunteered for Outer Rim duty because they were bored with safe, comfortable lives back on Earth. Amy suddenly looked up from her communication station, her eyes wide with excitement. "Captain, I'm getting something weird here. It sounds like someone's in serious trouble." Jake walked over to her station and listened to the strange, musical sounds coming through the speakers. The ship's computer was trying to translate it, but the words kept changing. Finally, a clear message appeared on the screen in English. "Help us," it said. "The machines are killing everyone. Our children are dying. Please, someone help us." Jake felt his heart racing as he read the message. The Galactic Federation had strict rules about humans getting involved in alien wars. They saw humans as dangerous newcomers who didn't understand civilized behavior. Just last year, the Federation had banned human ships from entering most star systems after some miners had gotten into a fight with Rigelian pirates. But Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same fire in their eyes that he felt burning in his chest. These were people who had never backed down from a fight, never left someone in need, never let bullies win without a battle. "Amy, can you trace where this signal came from?" Jake asked. "Already on it, sir," she replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's coming from the Zephyrian system, about 4 days away, at maximum speed." Sergeant Wilson stepped forward, his scarred face serious. "Sir, the Federation's going to be really angry if we interfere." Jake smiled grimly. "Tom, how many times have we followed Federation orders that felt wrong?" "Too many times, sir. Well, not today." Jake turned to face his entire crew, who had gathered around the command center. "Listen up, everyone. There's a whole alien race about to be wiped out, and apparently, we're the only ones willing to help them. I won't order anyone to come with me, but I'm going whether I go alone or with all of you." The response was immediate and unanimous. Every single person on the ship volunteered to join the rescue mission. Chief Davis was already calculating how much extra power they could squeeze from the engines. Dr. Chen was downloading everything she could find about Zephyrian biology. Tom's Marines were checking their weapons and armor as the Defiant changed course and jumped to hyperspace. Jake felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. Humans had always been the underdogs in galactic society, treated like dangerous children who needed to be watched and controlled. Today, they were going to show the galaxy what humans were really made of. The adventure they had all been waiting for was finally beginning. When the Defiant and her small fleet of human ships burst out of hyperspace, the sight that greeted them was pure horror. The beautiful blue-green world of Zephyria looked like it was being torn apart by giant metal monsters. Hundreds of angular, black ships surrounded the planet like angry wasps, firing brilliant red energy beams that turned entire ocean sections into boiling steam. Tom Wilson pressed his face against the bridge window, his jaw dropping at the destruction below. "Captain, this is insane. Look at the size of those things." The enemy ships were massive, some easily 10 times larger than the biggest human vessels. Their hulls were covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to shift and move like living metal. Amy Parker's fingers flew across her scanner controls, her face growing pale as the numbers came in. "Sir, I'm reading at least 300 enemy vessels. And look at this." She pointed to her screen, where dozens of bright spots were slowly fading away. "Those are Zephyrian cities. They're dying one by one." Dr. Chen studied the energy readings with growing anger. The timestamps on their original distress call show they've been under attack for 6 months. 6 months of asking for help while their people died, and not a single Federation ship showed up. Jake felt his hands clench into fists. The Federation claimed to represent peace and cooperation among all species, but when it came time to actually help someone, they were nowhere to be found. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. The communication that came back was filled with static and what sounded like underwater echoes. Through the universal translator, a desperate voice reached. "Them unknown ships, please identify yourselves. This is Admiral Kellera of the Zephyrian Defense Force." "Admiral, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Terran Colonial Defense Corps. We received your distress signal and we're here to help." There was a long pause before Kellera's voice returned, filled with disbelief. "Humans. But your species is marked as non-interference by Federation law. If you help us, you will face severe punishment from the Galactic Council." Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same determination on every face. "Admiral, let us worry about the Federation. Right now, you need help, and we're here to give it. Where do you need us most?" What happened next amazed even the humans themselves. Within 2 hours, they had completely changed their tactics from their original plan. Instead of engaging the massive enemy fleet directly, they focused on what humans did best, adapting and surviving. Chief Davis worked miracles with his engineering team, quickly modifying human breathing equipment to work underwater. "It's like building submarines, but in reverse," he explained to his confused assistants as they welded new parts onto diving gear. Meanwhile, Tom Wilson led the first human Marines ever to fight in an underwater alien city. The Zephyrians watched, in shock as the humans quickly learned to move through their crystal corridors, using modified jetpacks to navigate the water-filled spaces. "How are they doing this so quickly?" Admiral Kellera asked Dr. Chen during a brief meeting in an underwater command center. The human doctor was wearing a makeshift breathing apparatus that looked like it had been built from spare parts. Yet she seemed completely comfortable. "Humans come from a death world," Lisa explained simply. "We've had to adapt to survive in environments that would kill most species. Water, extreme temperatures, toxic gases, we've dealt with it all." The Zephyrians had never seen anything like it. Most alien species needed months of preparation and specialized equipment to work in unfamiliar environments. The humans just looked at the challenges, shrugged, and found ways to overcome them. Amy Parker coordinated rescue operations from orbit, directing human ships to evacuate civilians from cities that were about to fall. "Phoenix team, there's a school complex at coordinates 7 Alpha. 200 children trapped inside." "Copy that, Amy. came Tom's voice through the cum. We're going in. The Zephyrian children had never seen creatures like these humans before. They watched with wide, luminous eyes as armored figures moved through their flooded hallways, speaking in gentle voices, despite their fearsome appearance. "It's okay, kids," Tom said softly, his voice translated by the universal communicator. "We're here to get you somewhere safe." By the end of the first day, something incredible had happened. The humans hadn't defeated the enemy fleet. That would have been impossible with their smaller numbers. But they had done something even more important. They had given the Zephyrians hope. For 6 months, the aquatic aliens had fought a losing battle, watching their civilization slowly crumble. Now, for the first time, they had allies who refused to give up, who treated impossible situations as just another problem to solve. The real war was just beginning. The Korthak swarm had been conquering worlds for over a century, and they always used the same boring strategy. First, they would surround a planet with their massive ships. Then they would pound the defenses until everything broke. Finally, they would land their machines and strip away every useful resource, leaving behind dead, empty worlds. It had worked perfectly on 47 different planets, but the Korthak had never fought humans before. "This is crazy, Captain," Tom Wilson said into his radio as he led his squad through underwater volcanic vents that glowed like rivers of liquid fire. The water around them was hot enough to cook an egg in seconds, but the Marines just adjusted their suit settings and kept moving. These vents lead right under their main landing zone. Jake Morrison studied the tactical display on his command screen, watching his people move through environments that would instantly kill most aliens. "That's exactly why they won't expect us there, Tom. The Korthak think like machines. They calculate safe zones and dangerous zones. They would never imagine anyone crazy enough to use a volcano as a highway." The Zephyrians watching from their command center couldn't believe what they were seeing. Admiral Kellerup floated next to Dr. Chen, her large eyes wide with amazement. "Your people are swimming through water that's almost boiling. How is this possible?" Lisa smiled grimly as she monitored the Marines' vital signs. "Humans evolved on a world that was constantly trying to kill us. We learned to survive in places other species can't even imagine. Tom's squad once trained in the lava tubes of Mars. This is actually cooler than what they're used to. Up in space, Amy Parker was proving that human pilots were just as crazy as their ground forces. She twisted her fighter through a series of turns that would have crushed most alien bodies under the crushing force of acceleration. Her ship screamed past a massive Korthak vessel, firing missiles at point-blank range before spinning away in a corkscrew pattern that defied physics. How are they doing that? A Korthak communication intercepted by the humans revealed their confusion. Their ships should be breaking apart under those forces. Their pilots should be unconscious. What the machines didn't understand was that humans came from a world with gravity that was much stronger than most planets. Every human was naturally stronger and tougher than aliens from easier worlds. What seemed impossible to the Korthak was just another day at the office for Amy and her fellow pilots. Chief Davis was having the time of his life in the engineering bay, taking apart captured Korthak equipment like a kid with new toys. "Look at this stuff," he told his team excitedly, holding up a piece of alien technology. "They build everything to be efficient and predictable. No creativity, no adaptation. Watch this." He connected 3 different Korthak devices in a way that made no sense according to their original design. The result was a bomb that was 10 times more powerful than anything the aliens had built. "They think inside the box," Mike explained. "We don't even know there is a box." The Korthak began to realize they were facing something completely new when their perfectly planned attack formations started falling apart. Human forces didn't fight like any enemy they had encountered before. Instead of defending fixed positions, the humans flowed around the battlefield like water, appearing where they were least expected and disappearing before the machines could respond. Tom's Marines would attack from underwater volcanic vents, plant explosives, and then escape through radioactive zones that the Korthok couldn't follow them into. Amy's pilots would use asteroid fields as hiding spots, turning space rocks into weapons by ramming them into enemy ships at incredible speeds. They fight for 72 hours straight, one Korthok unit reported to its commanders. When we expect them to rest, fresh humans appear and continue the attack. They never stop. The machines had calculated that all organic species needed regular rest periods. They had never encountered humans who could work in shifts around the clock, keeping up constant pressure that slowly drove their enemies crazy. Dr. Chen was analyzing Korthok technology and biology with scientific precision that terrified even her own people. Their machines have a central processing weakness, she explained to Captain Morrison. If we can overload their communication network with random data, their coordination will collapse. Random data like what? Jake asked. Lisa's smile was almost scary. Like human music, art, and poetry. Their logical minds can't process information that doesn't follow mathematical patterns. We're going to give them such a headache that they won't be able to think straight. What followed was perhaps the strangest battle in galactic history. Human ships began broadcasting Earth's greatest hits, classical music, rock and roll, and even children's songs directly into Korthok communication networks. The machines, designed to process logical information, began malfunctioning as they tried to understand why humans thought it was important to preserve songs about dancing or love. Admiral Kellera watched human forces turn the tide of a battle that had seemed hopeless just days before. They don't fight like soldiers, she observed to her officers. They fight like the forces of nature itself, unpredictable, relentless, and absolutely unstoppable. The Korthak swarm was learning that some prey was too dangerous to hunt. The Korthak swarm had existed for 300 years, consuming planets and civilizations with the cold efficiency of a galactic harvesting machine. In all that time, across dozens of star systems and countless battles, they had never experienced what humans would call fear. Their mechanical minds didn't even have a word for the concept. But now, as their perfectly calculated invasion of Zephyria continued to fall apart in ways their computers couldn't predict, something new was happening in their collective consciousness. Error messages flooded their networks. Warning signals flashed in patterns they had never seen before. The humans were doing impossible things. Captain Morrison was reviewing battle reports in his ready room when Amy Parker burst through the door, her face a mixture of excitement and disbelief. "Sir, you need to hear this. The Korthok are trying to contact us." Jake nearly dropped his coffee cup. In 3 days of fighting, the machines had never attempted communication beyond their standard surrender demands to the Zep. "Are you sure it's not a trap?" "I don't think so, sir. They're using diplomatic channels," and Amy paused, shaking her head. "They sound confused." On the bridge, Jake stared at the communication panel, as if it might bite him. The entire senior staff had gathered, all wearing the same expression of amazement. Tom Wilson looked up from cleaning his rifle and grinned. Maybe they finally realized they picked a fight with the wrong species. "Put them through," Jake ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was flat and emotionless, like a computer reading a grocery list. "Human forces. This is Korthok Command Unit Designation 77 Alpha. We have analyzed your combat performance. You have demonstrated sufficient resistance to warrant negotiation." Jake looked around at his crew, all of whom were trying not to laugh. These machines talked like they were filing a business report instead of asking for peace talks. "We offer terms for your immediate withdrawal from this system," the Korthok continued. "You will be compensated with technology and allowed to leave without pursuit." The bridge fell silent. Even the Zephyrian observers floating in their water tanks looked shocked. In 3 centuries of conquest, The Korthak had never offered terms to anyone. Jake leaned forward and spoke into the microphone with the kind of calm confidence that had made him a legend among human military forces. Here's my counteroffer. You pack up your toys and get out of Zephyrian space right now, or we hunt down every single one of your ships and turn them into scrap metal. There was a long pause before the mechanical voice responded. This response is illogical. Our forces maintain numerical superiority of approximately 15 to 1. Math was never my best subject. Jake replied with a smile that his crew knew meant trouble for someone at that moment. Tom Wilson's voice crackled over the communication system from somewhere deep inside a captured Korthak vessel. Captain, you need to hear what I found in here. I'm looking at their main computer brain, and it's having what I can only describe as a mechanical nervous breakdown. Dr. Chen, who had been studying Korthak psychology for the past 3 days, stepped forward to explain. The swarm operates on predictive algorithms. They analyze enemy behavior, calculate response patterns, and adjust their tactics accordingly. But humans don't follow patterns they can understand. She pulled up a holographic display showing Korthak battle data. Look at this. They expected the Zephyrians to fight in organized formations, defend specific locations, and eventually surrender when losses reached a certain percentage. Standard behavior for most species. Amy pointed to the chaotic swirl of human movement on the tactical display. But we're everywhere and nowhere at once. We attack from impossible directions, use environments as weapons, and we get more dangerous the longer the fight goes on. The truth was even more disturbing for the Korthak machines. Their central processors had been designed to fight civilized wars against predictable enemies. Most alien species followed logical military doctrine. They protected their civilians, defended their important buildings, and retreated when casualties became too high. Humans did none of these things in ways the machines expected. Instead of protecting fixed positions, human forces used the entire battlefield as their weapon. They turned Korthak ships into guided missiles, crashed them into each other, and then salvaged the wreckage to build new weapons that shouldn't have worked but somehow did. Chief Davis had become a particular nightmare for the swarm's planning algorithms. Every time they calculated how their technology should function, Mike would modify it in ways that broke their understanding of physics. He turned their communication arrays into signal jammers, their shields into explosive devices, and their own repair drones into sabotage units. The humans exhibit behavioral patterns outside acceptable parameters, the Korthak reported to their collective mind. They display increased aggression when damaged rather than decreased combat effectiveness. They sacrifice strategic advantages for tactical unpredictability. They appear to enjoy combat situations that should cause retreat behavior. What the machines couldn't understand was that humans had evolved as persistence hunters on a death world. Getting hurt didn't make them want to quit. It made them angry. And angry humans were extremely dangerous humans. The swarm tried to adapt their tactics, but every adjustment they made only revealed new human capabilities they hadn't calculated. When the Korthak focused their attacks on human military targets, civilian mining ships suddenly became assault vessels. When they tried to predict human movement patterns, the humans started using random number generators to make their decisions completely unpredictable. Captain, Tom's voice came through. Come again. I think I figured out why they wanted to negotiate. According to their own computers, this is the first time in their entire existence that their casualty projections show them potentially losing a battle. They're scared. Jake Morrison looked out at the swarm of enemy ships that still outnumbered his forces by more than 10 to 1, and he smiled the kind of smile that had made humans famous across the galaxy. Good, he said. They should be. The last Korthak command ship limped away from Zephyria like a wounded animal, its hull scarred and smoking from human weapons it had never been designed to face. Behind it, the scattered remains of what had once been the galaxy's most feared, military force drifted through space as silent reminders of what happened when machines tried to break the human spirit. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the beautiful blue-green world spin peacefully below. 3 months ago, this planet had been dying under constant bombardment. Now crystalline cities sparkled beneath the waves like jewels, and schools of Zephyrian children swam through rebuilt corridors that rang with laughter instead of alarms. "Sir, you need to see this," Amy Parker called from the communication station, holding a data pad that seemed to glow with importance. "Messages have been flooding in from across the galaxy. Everyone wants to know what happened here." Jake took the pad and scrolled through dozens of transmissions. Some were from alien governments, others from military commanders, and quite a few from species he'd never even heard of. But they all said the same thing: the impossible had happened. Someone had not just defeated the Korthak swarm, but completely destroyed it. Admiral Kalara's official report to the Galactic Federation was already spreading through diplomatic channels like wildfire. Her words were simple, but powerful. "For 6 months, we called for help as our people died and our cities burned. Every major civilization in the galaxy heard our pleas, but only one species answered. The humans of Earth came to us when we had nothing left to offer, and they fought beside us with courage that inspired our warriors and ferocity that terrified our enemies." The report continued with details that made Federation politicians extremely uncomfortable. While their bureaucrats had debated whether helping the Zephyrians was worth the political risk, human colonists and miners had dropped everything to rush to the aid of complete strangers. While Federation admirals had calculated that the Korthok were too powerful to defeat, human Marines had proven that mathematics meant nothing when fighting for what was right. Tom Wilson walked onto the observation deck, his armor finally clean after months of battle. His Marines were scattered around the ship, some sleeping for the first time in weeks, others sharing stories with Zephyrian warriors who had become their closest friends. "Captain, the boys wanted me to ask you something. Are we in trouble back home?" Jake laughed and handed him the datapad. "Read for yourself." Tom's eyes widened as he scrolled through message after message from alien governments. The Altarian Republic, which had ignored Zephyrian distress calls for months, was now formally requesting human military advisors. The Centaurian Empire wanted to hire human mercenaries to deal with pirate problems they couldn't handle. Even the proud Vegan Alliance was quietly asking if humans might be interested in a defensive pact. 12 different species have officially requested human protection services, Amy reported from her station, and that's just in the last week. Apparently, news travels fast when you completely destroy a force that's been terrorizing the galaxy for decades. Dr. Chen looked up from her research station, where she had been cataloging captured Korthak technology. The Federation can complain about protocol violations all they want, but they can't argue with results. This technology we captured is going to advance human space capabilities by at least 50 years. We went from being barely tolerated newcomers to having tech that makes us a major galactic power. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The Galactic Federation had spent years treating humans like dangerous children who needed to be controlled and supervised. Their strict non-interference policies were designed to keep humans from getting involved in situations the Federation considered too complex for them to understand. But when the greatest threat the galaxy had seen in centuries appeared, it wasn't Federation fleets that saved the day. It was a handful of human miners, Marines, and colonists who had refused to let innocent people die while politicians debated the proper procedures. "So what happens now, Captain?" Tom asked, settling into a chair and finally allowing himself to relax. "Do we go home and pretend this never happened?" Jake smiled as he looked out at the stars, each one representing worlds full of people who now knew that humans were willing to fight for strangers, willing to face impossible odds, and willing to do whatever it took to protect the innocent. "Tom, we've got messages from 12 different species asking for our help. We've got technology that makes us one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. And we've got a reputation as the species that doesn't back down from a fight, no matter how tough things get. Amy's communication board lit up with another incoming transmission. This one from a species called the Draconians, who were having trouble with something called the Void Hunters. She looked up at Jake with excitement in her eyes. "Captain, it sounds like someone else needs our help." Jake Morrison looked around at his crew, these crazy, brave, impossible humans who had changed the galaxy simply by doing what they thought was right. Tom Wilson, the Marine who had led charges through underwater volcanoes. Amy Parker, the communications officer who had cracked alien codes that stumped Federation experts. Chief Davis, the engineer who had turned enemy technology into weapons. That shouldn't have worked, but did. Dr. Chen, the scientist who had analyzed alien weaknesses with precision that amazed even herself. "You know what, Amy?" Jake said, settling into his captain's chair with the satisfaction of a job well done and the anticipation of adventures yet to come. "Patch them through. It sounds like the galaxy has more problems that need solving, and we're just getting started. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human heroes was just beginning, and across the galaxy. Both friends and enemies were learning the same lesson. When humans made a promise, they kept it. When humans took a stand, they didn't back down. And when humans decided to fight for something, they fought until they won. The universe would never be the same."